Hi, I'm Martin Slam Duncan, and I am the publisher of Slam Press Tomes. We are releasing Frankenstein Visions, unleashing it to the world, and you are listening to True North Country Comics Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this podcast, I chat with Martin Duncan about Frankenstein Visions on Kickstarter. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. Please like and subscribe to that video channel. And if you want to help the site and the podcast, please consider supporting the effort by chipping in at ko-fi.com/True North Country Comics. Your patronage is greatly appreciated. Martin Duncan is the founder and publisher of Slam Press Tomes. Dedicated to crafting lavish, artist-driven tomes, he himself will be proud to own and display prominently on his shelves and coffee table. Slam Press Tomes is a boutique publishing house with a mission, producing high-quality books and publications featuring contemporary visionary talent. Top artists, both emerging and veteran, are unleashed upon genre-based literary classics. His recent publication, Dracula Visions, received critical acclaim. Martin's latest project is Frankenstein Visions. Frankenstein Visions is a 72-page gallery featuring over 35 top-tier artists presenting their unique interpretations of the most famous and celebrated monster in all of literature and popular culture. Each illustration is accompanied by a quote from Mary Shelley's original text that provided inspiration for each of the artists. Available in either softcover or hardcover editions, Frankenstein Visions offers distinct and stunning interpretations of the iconic Gothic thriller. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Martin Duncan about Frankenstein Visions on Kickstarter. So, Martin Duncan, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure.
Appreciate your time. Before we get started with all the questions, I want to ask you, what are you reading today? What's on your bedside reading table?
So I've got a huge stack of books. I call it my pile of shame that I'm trying to get through. Right on the top has to be the complete Gail Simone's Red Sonja. And the reason why I'm reading that is because there's an upcoming event and Gail Simone will be in attendance. So I'm hoping to get it signed, but I would feel really weird if I hadn't read it first.
Mm-hmm. She's definitely been in the business for a while and knows her stuff, that's for sure.
Oh, for sure. And I'm a huge Robert E. Howard Conan fan. So this has been something I've been meaning to read for a while, but this just sort of gave me a little bit of a push.
Now, we've spoken previously about your Dracula Visions project, and I understand you have a follow-up. Wonder if you could talk a wee bit about that.
I would love to. Yeah, so Dracula Visions 2 years ago came out. The follow-up, which we figured would be a natural follow-up, is Frankenstein Visions. So that is currently on Kickstarter. We just launched it on Monday. I don't know when this interview is coming out, but it's currently the 11th. But we launched it on Monday. And what it is, it's essentially, it's an artist's book where we're trying to celebrate a number of different artists. I would say about 90% are Canadian artists, and a lot of them come from the comic book world, Marvel, DC, Image. Some are independent artists and the likes of that. So what I wanted to basically make clear is that it's not sort of a retelling of Frankenstein. It's more of a celebration of the artists. And what we're using is the theme of the Frankenstein book in order to sort of inspire these artists. So going back, what we've done is I've taken a number of different quotes from the original Mary Shelley book, and then we've sort of asked the artist to sort of pick what their favorite quote was. Boy, was that something else to do. So what they did is they took their favorite quote and then they drew or painted or digitally created a art piece based on that quote that is inspired by that quote. And so this is a magazine-sized, so oversized publication with all these different pieces of art.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was looking at the list, and a lot of folks have been kind enough to lend their voices to interviews on this site. So yeah, a lot of recognizable names, that's for sure. So what inspired you to make it? Like, are you really into horror? Are you into these characters, the universal monsters, so to speak? Why did you do it?
So going back a little bit of history. So I used to do a podcast myself called the Fastball Special. And that sort of morphed at the beginning of COVID into Sketchelmania. So what Sketchelmania is a little online sketch battle show that I do. And what we do is we generally have these artists come on, have a nice little sort of sketch and talk, and then people could also ask questions while they're on. And at the end of it, we auction off all the pieces generally for charity. So I've been doing that since 2019. And what sort of came out of that was, because I've got to know all these artists, probably similar to yourself after talking to so many, decided to do a book. Now, I am a huge horror fan. But one of the things I wanted to do is look at some of the, the classic books that are currently in public IP, because I wanted to sort of build on some of that. The whole idea behind the Visions line is, think about having a sketchbook and you bring it to a Comic-Con, and, that sketchbook is, say, for example, a Superman themed sketchbook, and you get all these different artists doing their version of Superman. I always thought that was really cool. So I took it sort of a step further and said, well, what if they took one of these classic monsters such as Dracula, and not necessarily the monster himself, but any of the characters that are in Dracula, and did something similar. So we have all these different styles, and I encourage them to really lay into their specific styles. So like I said, we have fantastic painters, we have more traditional artists, we have digital artists. So you're going to get a wide variety of art, and it's it's going to be an absolutely stunning book.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I wanted to go back a wee bit. You've listed some of the great artists who will be on the book, but I'm wondering, what was their initial reaction when you approached them? Were they all agreeable, or did they hesitate? What was the feedback?
For the original book or for the new one?
Oh, for the new one, for sure.
For the new one, okay. So I'll tell you, like, the original book, just to get the concept out there, was, it being my first book, of course, there's going to be a bit of skepticism, right? Because I haven't published anything at this point. So it was a little bit more of, explaining the whole, theory behind it, gaining that initial trust, right? Once the first one was published and we had a successful Kickstarter, essentially the Dracula Visions book became my best resume, right? So it was it was much easier to approach artists and saying, hey, this is what I want to do. Here's what it looks like. And all we're doing is we're changing it from Dracula to Frankenstein. It was a much easier pitch, so to speak. As a matter of fact, whereas the first one I was sort of, calling in all my favors, the second one I actually had some of the artists reach out to me saying that they would be interested in doing Frankenstein because they were such big fans of the original novel.
For sure. It's a classic, that's for sure. As the organizer of this book and editor, in a sense, did you have to go back and ask for small changes or edits or whatever the case may be?
Very little. One of the key things we had to make sure of is we did not want to have recreation of any of the, say, Universal or Hammer versions of the monster or characters. Nothing that came sort of from the movies. So it had to be, sort of closer to the text, or even the artists. Like I said, I encouraged creating their own version. So there was a couple that sort of came a little close to your Universal monsters, so we had to tweak it a little, but in most respects, they're all very original pieces, and very proud of it.
That's good. Yeah, it's so much in our sort of psyche and our public sort of knowledge about who these monsters are.
Yes,
it's really tough to sort of get a new sort of sense about it. But certainly with the artistic talent that you have, I'm sure that wasn't a big problem.
Oh, absolutely. And I think a lot of them, like I said, are very big fans of the source material, the source book. So it wasn't very difficult for me to convince them to do their version, right? So
That's good.
They absolutely wanted to do that, and they were very excited to do so.
So you chose Kickstarter as your platform for this crowdfunding effort. I wonder if you could just give me some sense of why you went back. I know you were successful first time, but what is it about Kickstarter that is the essence of getting this project done?
I mean, it's essentially getting your voice out there. It's almost like another social media type platform in a way, because you're really catering to people that are looking for, in a lot of cases, independent projects. So it's a case where, yes, I could, potentially publish us on my own and then, do the Comic-Con circuit. And I am going to be doing that anyway. But it's a really great way to grow that initial, customer base. So being on Kickstarter, what I'd like to do ultimately is to have maybe a book come out every couple of years along these type of lines. I'm already thinking about the next one. I shouldn't look too far ahead, but yeah, it does provide that sort of home so that we could expand our customer base to the folks that are on Kickstarter. And there's sort of an expectation there where we could also help each other out. So, for example, a lot of the artists that I have their own Kickstarters out. So we'll do a lot of cross promotion between our artists, and it's just a great way to get the word out.
Sure. Now, I know with most Kickstarters, there's promotional opportunities beyond just the book itself. I'm wondering if you could explain some of the incentives that you have for this particular project.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we have the book. What I did for this specifically, and a lot of people really enjoy it, coming from the comic book world, we all know about variant covers, right? So I wanted to make this very special. So we actually have 3 soft cover variant covers for people that are interested. So the first one is going to be Richard Pace has the original cover, and then I have Adam Gorham, who did the original cover from Dracula, has now come back to do a separate one for Frankenstein. Now, the third cover, I always like to do this where if we have a particular piece that have come in that it is just incredibly striking or creates a buzz within the community, I like to make that one a particular cover. And Paul Lemenko has sort of cornered that spot. His piece is just absolutely riveting. In addition to that, we also have a hardcover. Why are we doing a hardcover? Because I would want a hardcover myself of this. Mm-hmm. And we got the one and only Ken Lashley doing the hardcover, which nice. I'm absolutely thrilled to do. But you were talking about outside of the book. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. But outside of the book, there are quite a few different things. We're doing a specific Rizzo print. So Rizzo print, if you're not too familiar, it's similar to where they take like T-shirts and they do they'll do like one color at a time. That sort of process. So we're doing a specific Rizzo print featuring Emmanuel Chantonoff's amazing art piece of Mary Shelley. Oh. So this is going to be a very limited piece. It is going to be put into one of our Kickstarter early bird specials. And yeah, it's going to be a stunner. So that's going to be available. I also have a piece going in from Jason Lowe, whose career has just absolutely skyrocketed in the last few years. So he did a piece for the book, and we're also going to be providing a signed limited print with the book itself. In addition to that, we have some other items. So we're doing these really cool tote bags. So it's one of the things that I noticed actually at a few Comic-Cons, and I was inspired by this. I saw some folks put their own art on tote bags, and I thought that was the great idea because, even when you're going to a Comic-Con, you usually want a bag to put all your stuff and I thought this would be a great idea. So we would put some of the original Frankenstein art on some of these tote bags. So I've created 4 different options. If you go on, you could pick whatever art you want out of those 4 styles, and you could get one of these really cool. They're full black tote bags. They, I think, could hold up to, I think it was 30 to 40 pounds. They're really sturdy, and they're super cool. Yeah.
That's great.
So, excited to have those.
Yeah, for sure. You're not going to get plastic bags anymore, so that sounds like a great.
Well, that's it, right? Yeah, you can bring your Frankenstein bag to the grocery store.
Sure. Very striking bag that will be identifiable. You won't get confused with anybody else's, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, you talked about promotion at conventions. Do you have anything lined up as yet? Is that something still in the cards?
Well, I've had with the Dracula book, I've been doing a number of conventions throughout the year, and as a matter of fact, I'm almost out of the original run. I might have to go to second print. So it's been very well received at conventions. Now I'm from Toronto, so I did both the Toronto Comic Con and Fan Expo, and I've done a couple of cons outside of the city as well. What I do have coming up, if I could talk about those, a couple of quick things for October in conjunction with the Kickstarter. One is in Cambridge, there's a comic book store called The Hero's Tale, and The Hero's Tale has been gracious enough to allow me to basically create my own Halloween horror bash there. So on October 21st at The Hero's Tale in Cambridge, we're going to have 10 different artists there. We're going to have cosplayers. We're going to show the original Frankenstein movie. It's going to be an absolute blast. You'll be able to pick up some of the remaining Dracula books that I have. Absolutely recommend if you're in the area or not too far from there, check that out. And then probably the last show of the year that I'll be doing is Frightmare in the Falls, which is at Niagara Falls on the Canadian side. And I'm absolutely stoked to do that. I've never been to that show, and I'm dying to go to just a pure convention. I've never done that, so I'm excited.
Yeah, something to look forward to. Yeah,
be there. Yeah, I'm excited, and I think these books are going to play very well there.
Cool. Yeah. Now, this question is a little bit off the beaten path, but I've been asking creators about using AI in comic book creation. So I want to get your take. Do you think that AI is helpful or harmful to comic book creation?
To comic book creation, I'll step back first and say I think that AI has its place in certain things, but from a artistic point of view, I am staunchly against it. In a lot of cases, I think it's straight up theft because of the way that the algorithm works, and they essentially take a lot of existing works and modify them and almost Frankenstein them together to create new pieces. And I think it's just an absolute lazy way to go about creating these. If you have an idea, either take the time, learn the skills, or hire someone that has those skills to do the art. I find it a little bit of a slap in the face, to be honest, for artists. And I know I'm maybe coming off as a little bit harsh, but yeah, I'm not a fan.
So, I appreciate that.
There you go. Yeah.
There you go. Understood. Yeah. Now, we've been talking about Frankenstein Visions. I guess it's too early to talk about any other projects you have on the go. Is it a little bit early?
I could give you a little snippet. So, assuming Frankenstein Visions goes well, as I mentioned, I'd love to do a book every couple of years, very similar to this type of style. There's actually two things I want to start dipping my toe in. One of them is the gaming world. So, what I mean by that is I'm a big RPG gamer, like Dungeons and Dragons, that sort of stuff. So, I'd love to maybe release some material for Dungeons and Dragons, maybe via Kickstarter. We'll have some of our amazing artists on there doing their renditions. And then I also have a writer who used to actually write modules for a living. So that's something we're looking to get into. And then, of course, with the Visions line, we're looking to also do a third book. And we're leaning very heavily into twisted fairy tales. So I think it's going to be something like Grimm Visions with the Brothers Grimm. And then we're looking at the original text, which is, if you haven't read it, it's very different than the Disney-sized ones that you would be watching or used to. Very dark and very, very interesting. So that is something that I'm definitely, it hasn't been finalized, but I'll let you know this is something that we're looking at.
Sounds good. Now, with all that you've got on the go and what you've just talked about in the future, is there a website you recommend people go to find out about your current and your future projects?
I would absolutely direct people right to the Kickstarter. So if you go to Kickstarter and you just search up Frankenstein Visions, it'll pop up for you. If you're interested in the monthly show that I put on from Sketchelmania, you could find us on YouTube under Sketchelmania and also on Facebook under Sketchelmania. As a matter of fact, we just recorded one last night, and the auction is up right now, and it's all horror based, so you might want to check that out. But that being said, We do one every month, so there's a lot of options to purchase or get some great art, and usually for some great causes. And then lastly, of course, we also have Slam Press Tomes, which is the name of the company that is bringing out the Visions line of books. So that is the publisher name, and you can find that on all the social medias. You can find that on Facebook. We have our own page there. We have Instagram. You could look under that. We even have a TikTok, which we get a little silly on, but you could find us there as well.
Cool. Well, Martin, those are all the questions I have for you, but I'm wondering, is there something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview?
I think you did fantastic, to be honest, and I'm very excited about these projects. So, yeah, I would just say one of the key things we want to do at Slam Press Tomes, and the number one rule, is to create a quality product. Right? I want to not only make sure that it is something that I am proud of. In my mind, I am representing, in some cases, 30 for this last book, 38 different artists, and I don't want to put something out that has these 38 different artists' names on it that they cannot be proud of. So I promise this is going to be a phenomenal book, and if you are at all interested, you can go on there. There's something for everyone. There's levels for everyone. If you want the kitchen sink, there's that. If you just want a PDF to look at the art, we could provide you that. Or if you just want the regular book, we could give you that as well on the softcover. Everything that are in the different versions are going to be in all the versions. So I never want to put art behind a paywall. So what I mean by that is, although I do have a hardcover version of this book, every piece of art that is in that hardcover version is going to be in all the softcover versions. So you're not going to be missing out on anything. I just want to get this amazing product out there. So that's essentially the message I'd like to put out there.
Thanks to Martin for the chat. You can discover more about Frankenstein Visions on Kickstarter. Thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts. And please check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website. True North Country Comics is now on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to that video channel and hit the notification button. And you can follow along at True North Country Comics on most social media sites. Please send all your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. And if you want to help the site and the podcast, please consider supporting the effort by chipping in at ko-fi.com/TrueNorthCountryComics. Your patronage is greatly appreciated. Thanks for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2023.